I mean, David Maddock, who's usually quite reliable for Liverpool, said Salah, Mane, Keita, and Milner all going to sign extensions. Now, I'm going to go to you, Jamie, on James Milner. He's clearly, I think, like Klopp's staff, sort of part of the furniture at Anfield now. And personally, I wouldn't be against him signing a new deal whatsoever. Some people may do for understandable reasons, but what are your thoughts on James Milner?
I'd keep him around, but not only just because of the player, I think because of the person. I think he's just good to have around the changing room. You see, when City lost company for that season, they looked a bit lost. A lot of leadership left them. David Silva then leaving them as well. So you've got to have that leadership. You've got to have them characters around the dressing room. He's very experienced. I'd love to see Milner retire at Liverpool and then go straight into our coaching staff because I just think he's a fantastic person. He's also Mr. Reliable. Look, next season he'll get, if he signs, I think he'll get very minimal minutes. But if we're in any crisis, Milner can slot in anywhere. So I think his wages that he'll be asking for won't be major. It won't be silly. I think it's better to just keep him on. I really do. I love Milner as a character as well. And I think the lads will appreciate Milner staying as well.
We've spoken about young players, Jay, and for me, you can't find a more consummate professional to learn from than James Milner. I mean, we spoke about we've seen Gerrard has Gary McAllister as his assistant now. That's because of the massive impact he had on him as a youngster. I mean, just think about learning from James Milner. Doesn't drink, is the most ultimate professional. I think it would be so beneficial to keep him on.
Massively, mate, because he sets the standards. I think he still wins the bleep test now at 36, which is ridiculous. So if you're a youngster watching that, that's the standards that you need to be at. That's someone who's not even playing, and that's how hard he works. So that tells you as a kid how important it is to work. But on the flip side of it as well, let's say Linders does get a manager's job. Milner will have been in and around that since Klopp came from the beginning. Could he move into that type of assistant manager role if Klopp does extend beyond the deal he's got? Because I think there's an additional year or 2 years option on it. So we could even potentially move into that. But I think having someone like Milner as well stops what you've seen at United in terms of the dressing room. You can see players turn on the manager. I think when you've got a character like Milner and Henderson in the changing room, they can always help with things like that as well. So it is important to have proper leaders and proper professionals in your dressing room. So it's a no-brainer for me. It's not like he's going to be asking for ridiculous wages. He doesn't play enough for that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And he's been spotted, obviously, being around the academy. There could be a role for him there. And he spent more time at Liverpool than he has at any other club.
Yeah.
In his career. Everyone thought he'd go back to Leeds, but I just think he's so part of the furniture at Liverpool now that I think he sort of adopted them as his love, and it's just brilliant to see, to be honest. He could still play Premier League football every week, I think he could, but to have the role that he does, he's just an absolute legend. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Jamie, is the only name that was not mentioned in that. That wasn't mentioned. I think the writing's on the wall, to be honest with you, with him. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with it as well. I don't see Chamberlain signing on. I see him going straight in the summer. I think it's best for both parties. I think it's best for us as a football club to move on, bring someone else in. And I think it's best for him as well. He's still looking to play first team football. We've seen his frustration against Nottingham Forest when he muttered under his breath that he's barely played any minutes. So I think it's best for both parties. We sell him, we get a little bit of money, we go and invest that money into a younger version centre mid. I think the Chamberlain kind of replacement's already there in Carvalho. He's got that exciting attacking midfielder build around him, that aura where he has goals for midfield wherever Klopp plays him. And then we can use his money to go and maybe get to Tchouameni, who's linked to a midfielder like that. It's best for both parties. We bring in a young midfielder who will have for 10 plus years, and Chamberlain goes and plays first team football. I think it's a no-brainer that Chamberlain goes in the summer, unfortunately.
I think he's got a lot of negative press this season, Ox. I don't think he's had his greatest time, but I also don't think he's been bad for Liverpool. I wouldn't call him a bad signing, Jay.
No, before the injury at Roma, he was on a really good run. He was great against City in 2 games, and he was playing well back then, but he's never ever been anywhere near that. I've seen people this season say, "Oh, Ox was quite good at the beginning of the season." I honestly don't know what you're watching. If you think Oxlade-Chamberlain's been decent this season, he hasn't. When I watch him, it's like he does something different to what he's been told to do. He just doesn't have a football brain, to me. Whether he used to, I don't know, but he certainly hasn't now. He's nowhere near good enough, mate. And I love him as a person, to be honest. He comes across as a dead nice fella. But no, like, the thought of him starting in the 11, like, actually angers me. I think he's been that bad. Yeah, just
Yeah,
being
I agree.
honest, to be honest, mate.
I agree. I agree. I used to be his biggest cheerleader. This season he's just really frustrated, and I think when we are spoiled with Thiago, Henderson, Keita, Fabinho in midfield, and the drop to Oxlade-Chamberlain is dramatic. Even when we have Jones, even Jones and Elliott are a level above him now.
Yeah, Jones is above him for me, definitely. He just runs into crowds of players all the time and tries ranges of passing around in his game. Everything he does frustrates me.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think that Jones and Elliott take minutes that were taken up by Oxlade-Chamberlain and Milner. But what do you think would be a good destination for Ox, Jamie? Because I've seen a couple of comments. Matthias the Viking with his beard has said he would be great at Milan or Dortmund. But personally, I think he'd be. I think he'd suit going back to his hometown in Southampton.
Yeah, for Ox, I'd definitely say keep him around the Premier League. I think he's good enough for a mid-table Premier League side to start. Like a Southampton, I think it's a great shout. Possibly Brighton link up with Adam Lallana. He'll be a good friend of his. So yeah, I wouldn't ship him abroad. He's English, and I think if he's good enough for the Premier League, that's the league you want to be in. He's home then. So yeah, I think Southampton, Brighton, like I said with Lallana, I think one of those sides would definitely snap him up for whatever Liverpool's selling for 100%.
What do you think the price range will be, Jay? Because it's fair to say we won't be recuperating that. But what do you think would be a fair price for Ox?
No more than 20 million. And I think you'd be a bit mad to pay 20, to be honest. Like, we're talking about a player who doesn't really ever play. And when he does, he doesn't really do much to impress. So I think you'd be lucky if you got 20 for him. I think West Ham would be a good move for him. I think he could do a Lingard there.
Yeah, he'd be a good option there. I don't know whether he play, to be honest. I think West Ham's midfield's their strongest asset.
Yeah, to do that.
To be honest, I'm struggling to think. But Southampton's the only one that really pops out. I mean, it'd be a good little career arc for him going back to his hometown. But yeah, away from Ox, going to Naby Keita now. It's fair to say, Jamie, that he's had his best season in a Liverpool shirt by quite a stretch.
Yeah, definitely. I think Naby's been brilliant. Naby's always been that brilliant player. We've just missed seeing it consistently. His injuries are so frustrating because we know he can explode. We know he's an exciting player who likes to move the ball forward and quickly. I think that's sometimes what we lack in midfield as well. So we're kind of seeing now the Naby Keita that we signed and we've been wishing for 3 years. It's coming out now. Whatever fitness program that they put on him in the summer's definitely working. His availability has been really good. The same with Matty. We're seeing some changes in that. And I think Naby is a player, if you can keep him fit, he is absolutely sensational. I think at the minute, he's in our strongest midfield. He's in our strongest team. I'm definitely on that. Fabinho, Thiago, Keita. I think it works brilliantly. They complement each other so well. And we play great football playing it. So Naby, I'd definitely sign on. I think now his injuries, God willing, try not to jinx it and touch wood, are kind of out the way in his Liverpool career. He can properly explode in the Premier League.
Yeah, Jay, do you agree that he's in our strongest midfield? And in terms of his wage packet, I think it would be a bit of a steep ask if he asked for a pay rise. But do you think that he's in our best midfield, and do you think he will sign a contract?
It's sort of a risky one with him, just because of his injury record. I used to be a big critic of Keita, to be honest, mainly for that reason. And I used to think the league was a bit physical for him, but Jamie's right. Like, to be honest, he turns into a big game player. Against United at Old Trafford, he was brilliant, arguably the best player. City the other week, I thought he was brilliant. Beginning of the season, I said I'd go to Dortmund to try and get Bellingham on a reduced price by giving them Keita as a swap. But I wouldn't do that now. I would keep him. If he can keep his injury record the way it's starting to go now, that midfield three against City was unreal. And I think he was that good. He's starting to make Henderson look like he's not to the standard of the other three now. And I've always been a defender of Henderson, to be fair, but I think Keita's starting to come into his own. And that is making Henderson look like he's not the level of Fab, Thiago and him now. So it's crazy how this season's changed my opinion 100 times, to be honest.
Yeah. It's brilliant to have these options, isn't it?
Yeah.